and thank you for joining me today for one of our first Friday webinars, Best Practices for Hybrid Course Design. Today, we are going to just scratch the surface of hybrid courses, hybrid course design. We're going to spend some time first defining what hybrid is and where it fits into this spectrum of modalities. We will talk about some considerations and some best practices for getting started. And this topic truly could easily become a series of webinars and videos to help guide faculty through this process. So I need to hear from you, the faculty, if more on this topic is desired. I'm happy to do that. There are many considerations for course mapping, building the course design for Canvas, pedagogical considerations, assessment plans, and much more. So today we're just getting started. And this webinar is designed specifically for campus faculty. So faculty who typically teach in our traditional area who are considering a course redesign to transition a traditional face-to-face course to a hybrid modality. But first, we need to get on the same page. So we will spend some time discussing what is a hybrid course. And to understand that, we first need to review the modality spectrum, because hybrid is in this spectrum of course modalities that we can offer. So we first need to look at face-to-face and online, and those are kind of the extremes of this spectrum, so to speak. But keep in mind that between face-to-face, the traditional model of coming to class and doing assignments outside of class, and this other extreme of everything's online and asynchronous, there are a lot of variations between and within these major modality categories. So we're just going to spend some time looking at this. So face-to-face is a classroom-based instruction with traditional homework activities, and class meetings are not reduced. So if it's a 3-credit-hour class, it will typically meet on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 50 minutes. Tuesday, Thursday, it might meet for 90 minutes. And no class meetings are replaced with anything. Every student comes to class for the class meetings. Then you have this next version, which is called Web Enhanced. Again, this is classroom-based instruction. It might have some online learning activities before or after class. And still, students are coming to class for every scheduled class meeting. The class meetings are not typically reduced. So it just has these elements that live within the learning management system, activities, videos to watch, or readings to take care of before they come to class. And then after class, they might go home and work on some assignments and submit those to Canvas. That would be more of a web enhanced modality. Then we have the hybrid modality, and keep in mind there are different types of hybrid models, and we're going to get into that a little bit today, what that might look like. But basically, class meetings are reduced. So instead of meeting 3 times a week for the whole 15 weeks, there might be different rhythms of meeting in class, and then pair that with outside independent work, which is in lieu of what would normally be spent in class. So class meetings are reduced and replaced by varying degrees based on goals and design. Some institutions have hybrid model policies where they specify exactly how much seat time can be replaced by online or outside of class activities. We're going to look at a couple of those definitions today. It's a heavy use of the LMS for instruction and or learning activities. And again, there's a lot of different views of what hybrid is, even within that one category. And then we have our online, which is becoming our traditional online. All instruction and learning activities are online. At our institution, that's asynchronous. Instructors may offer optional meeting times on Zoom where students could come in and ask questions, or they might have online office hours, but that's not ever mandated of our online students. So in our case, it's all asynchronous. Some institutions may offer synchronous meetings via an online meeting tool. So again, lots of variations within each module, and the course learning outcomes, the student characteristics, and the content should really be heavily considered when making a decision to possibly transition a traditional face-to-face class to a hybrid modality. So there are a lot of considerations to keep in mind. So think about it this way: when one course is offered in various modalities, so it's the same course offered as a face-to-face section and an online section, the two sections will likely have the same learning outcomes, but the approach to the course design, the instruction, the content, the learning activities will likely be very different based on the modality in which it's being offered. So the experience for students will be very different whether they take, let's just say, Composition 1 face-to-face or online, or even web enhanced or hybrid. Same course, same learning outcomes, different experience for the student, and therefore it requires different planning models. And we're going to go through some of those today. So today we're going to focus specifically on hybrid. That's where we're spending our time to really look at and dig into what does this hybrid mean. Again, it's a combination of classroom-based instruction and independent learning, and seat time is reduced. So instead of coming to class 3 times a week for 15 weeks, they will meet fewer times. But because of the clock hour and the credit hour, students will be working on things outside of the traditional class meeting. So however an institution defines what hybrid means specifically, it can remain flexible in the approach. But the modality should be clearly defined so that the course section can be marked hybrid and communicated to the students when they select course schedules. So it should never be a surprise when a student walks into class the first day and this is not a traditional model, this is hybrid. Students should know that before class day 1. They should have that option to sign up for a class and know the modality in which it's going to be delivered. So some various ways that universities define hybrid. From Stanford University, they say that a hybrid course is where some sessions take place in person and some sessions take place fully online. So a very broad definition. There are no specifics other than sometimes during the week, a student will be meeting in person, and sometimes during a week, some sessions will take place fully online. Now, I don't work for Stanford University, so I don't know what fully online means. I don't know if that's a synchronous Zoom meeting. I don't know if that students are just working on their own independently. I'm not sure what they mean by that. So they probably have a lot of variety in how a hybrid course looks at their university. Oregon State University is a little bit more specific, where they say a hybrid course includes both regularly scheduled on-site class meetings and significant online out of classroom components that replace regularly scheduled class meeting times. So that's even more defined, but yet still offers flexibility for the faculty. University of Connecticut actually has 2 levels of hybrid. They have the hybrid blended, which they denote with HB, and these classes have both in-person and online components, and classes will meet in person for all scheduled meetings. Classes will not meet in person for all scheduled meetings. At least 25% of mandatory instruction for the class will occur in person. So again, more specific. So at least 25% of the class time needs to be spent inside the traditional classroom. And then they have a hybrid blended reduced seat time, which is HBR. And these classes have, again, both in-person and online. Classes will not meet in person for all scheduled meetings, and less than 25% of mandatory instruction for the class will occur in person. So even less time in class, the seat time. So as you can see, a lot of variation from university to university, how that's defined. But an institution does need to define what hybrid means specifically. So these are some great examples. You might also, I hate to throw this term out there, but you might also hear the term high flex. And High flex is different from hybrid. And I'm not even going to talk about that today. You can Google what high flex is. And if you're interested, we can spend some time talking about it. But today we're talking specifically about hybrid. So in a nutshell, hybrid courses replace a portion of traditional face-to-face instruction with web-based online learning. That might include video lectures, online discussions or activities, or other considerations, which we're going to talk about next. And the amount of face-to-face instruction that's replaced by the online part really does vary greatly by institution, by class, by discipline, by learning objectives, even by the level of student that you're working with. So all of those things are considerations that you should think about before making the decision to move to hybrid. So this is a great definition by Garrison and Vaughn. They do a lot of work, a lot of writing on hybrid learning, blended learning. So they say hybrid learning combines the properties and possibilities both to go beyond the capabilities of each separately. So it's really taking a face-to-face and an online, you know, if the course is face-to-face versus online versus a mixture, that mixture makes it even a more rich experience. And we'll talk about ways to do that. So it's recognized for strengths of integrating verbal and text-based communication. It creates a unique fusion of synchronous and asynchronous, direct and mediated modes of communication. In that proportion of face-to-face and online learning activities may vary considerably, which is what we've discovered just looking at a few institutions and how they define hybrid learning. So some considerations before starting the redesign. And this next slide will have a lot of information. I'm going to give you 10 things. And these are just sort of thoughts. It's going to guide your thinking as you're thinking about whether or not you want to move your course specifically to the hybrid model. So it's basically a checklist of things you want to reflect on, brainstorm, and consider. So the first one is, what is the purpose for the modality choice and why are you considering it? What benefits does the hybrid modality offer your students and the course objectives versus just the traditional online in-class experience? Can you justify this modality for your specific course with benefits, with the benefit evidence or proof of concept? What needs to happen in the classroom face-to-face and what can happen outside of the classroom, either independently, offline, or online? So you want to consider the learning format and the course objectives. So we're going to look a little bit on how to map that out, but you'll start to think about these things definitely need to happen in the classroom when I'm with students, and these are the things that really could happen or should happen when students are outside of the classroom. What will be the rhythm of meeting? So we know that hybrid reduces seat time. So will you be meeting every Monday? Would you be meeting every other week? Would you be meeting the first Monday of each month? You know, those are considerations to think about as a faculty. What check-in opportunities will you offer or require? What is the purpose of those check-ins? And will those check-ins be virtual or face-to-face, class-based or individual-based? So again, are you bringing students together? How often will you have check-ins throughout the week when you're not meeting? What do those look like? Are they in-class online discussions? Are you in there communicating with them? Are you posting announcements? What are students doing to get that student-to-student interaction when they're not meeting in the classroom? Those are all things to think about. Does your course content and course objectives benefit from a lab meeting model? And you'll find this a little bit in the writing on what hybrid models can do, but think about work sessions. So I'm picturing maybe upper level students who are working on some research projects. That might be a good course to move to a hybrid model where you're checking in with them to check on their progress, but then you're also having them come in coming into the classroom where they're working independently or in pairs, to like a writing boot camp or a research boot camp where you're bringing them together collectively to individually work on their projects. That's something that might be considered a lab model. How will you maintain a culture of availability to your students? Will you check in with course announcements? Will you be present in discussion forums? Will you be emailing them? Will you be present in the online discussions? Those are all things to think about. How will you create a culture of community amongst your students? We know that from the research that students who are connected and in community with other students are more likely to persist. So this is important. Is this important for your course and your student experience? And that really depends on the characteristics of your students and your content and what they're working through. And how will you connect what is done in the classroom with what is done online or what is done independently? So will the learning path be easy to follow? Will students see the purpose of each element, both individually and collectively within the course? Will it make sense to them why they're doing some things in the classroom and how their out of class experience fits into that, although separate? There should be connection between the two, and it should be clear to students. And finally, if you're not meeting with students on a regular basis, 3 times a week or 2 times a week, how will you identify students who are struggling or falling behind? This will be critical for your retention for your students in your class. What methods will you use to assess their progress and work when you're not meeting regularly? So these are just 10 considerations that I came up with after doing extensive reading on hybrid course design. Like I said, this could easily become a series of things that we discuss in webinars or within even a learning community through the Center for Learning and Innovation. I'm happy to put a group together if there's a group of you who want to kind of dig into developing a hybrid course or a series of hybrid courses. And today we're going to focus just on a few of these considerations. So first, we need to look at course redesign best practices. So again, we're focusing here on traditionally campus faculty who teach on campus 3 days a week or 2 days a week, considering moving to a hybrid modality. And this really is not just a reduction in seat time and throwing some things together online. It really should be considered a course redesign with intentional planning. It's not just adding online components and only meeting 1 day a week. There's more to it. So I wanted to be a little creative here and help you visualize what not to do. So these are pitfalls that we want to avoid. And the first one is the giant. We don't want the giant course where we're just adding online content to an on-campus course, making it a course and a half or a giant course. We want to avoid the blob. And the blob is in-class elements and online elements, but no real structure, no real meaning behind the learning path, little connectedness between the in-class and online or outside class elements. And then finally, the pretender. And the pretender claims to be a hybrid course, but there might be very little time together in class with most of the work done independently with little online interaction between students and the instructor, or the online component is simply a repository of materials students are working through, again, with no active discourse or active or collaborative learning. Or it's a face-to-face class with some online reading and occasionally submitting an assignment online. So those that I just described might fit into that spectrum in some other area, but that's not truly what a hybrid course is. So we want to avoid the giant, the blob, and the pretender. So when we're thinking about planning, and this, I'm going to showcase some samples from Oregon State University. And I don't want you to be intimidated by this process, but at the same time, I want to emphasize that this is a process of redesigning a course. Okay, it's not just simply we're only going to meet once a week and then we're going to do some stuff online. There really needs to be a method behind your madness, so to speak. So from Oregon State University, they have a wonderful repository of some open source resources. I have them it's open source by Creative Commons. I have their logo there and their website. So if you're interested in looking more at their resources, and then if you have questions about those, you can certainly reach out to me. So one of their recommendations is that you create a blended and remote learning mix map. So this could be a hybrid mix map. So I'll let you take a look at that here real quick. So basically, it's a Venn diagram for those of you who know what a Venn diagram is. So you have the synchronous area, the asynchronous area, and then both this overlap. And that's really, in this case, it's more of how are these items connected? And do you have a lot of things kind of floating out there by themselves, you know, without any connection? So this is a very simplified version of one of these charts that is filled out. Again, this is an example from Oregon State University. And I'm going to show you one that looks a lot different from this, but this is a real simple way to start with this planning or this mapping process. So you're putting items in the in class, you're putting items in the out of class, you're trying to make those connections between the two and really creating this learning path and this interrelatedness of all of your components. And then here's another example. This is quite extensive, where this first one might be 1 week. You know, and I recommend that you just, if you make the decision to go hybrid, that you start week by week. So this is what 1 week might look like. And then when you get through all of the weeks, I believe this is a 10-week course, you have a lot of information in there. So you might even have like, if it's a 15-week semester, you might have 15 of these mix maps to help you brainstorm. Here's another example from Oregon State. This is for the MAN 4350 training and development model or course. And it's simply looking at the strategies. So how does this particular instructor or university define hybrid? So 50% classroom, 50% online. Model training principles, model the coaching and service learning and training project need to be connected. So just some thoughts there. And then there's that online and classroom, a consideration of grades and a team project. And then that can turn into something more like this, where this again is still that Venn diagram, just further connected. And again, the in class and the out of class and the connection between the two. And then as you continue to develop your weeks or your class meetings, you can add to that. And so this is what that might turn into. Another consideration is how to redesign the syllabus to help communicate the expectations of the modality to the students. So if you're going to branch out and create a hybrid course, those aren't often done at our institution. So you would want to make sure you're spending time educating the student on what that means for your class specifically. And so think about your syllabus and what would need to be added to the syllabus, what might need to be completely taken out of the syllabus or even just edited to reflect the hybrid language. So some things that you might consider adding in, and here are some examples. So you might have a section in your syllabus that starts with what is a hybrid course, and you can say comp 101 is a hybrid course. A hybrid course replaces some in-class time with online learning activities completed outside of class. In-class meetings are used for collaboration and discussion. So instead of a student coming to class expecting a lecture, they're going to come to class expecting a lot of discussion and active learning. You might also have a section in your syllabus called reduction of face-to-face class time. So you might say for this course, this many classroom sessions are being replaced with these online activities, and you can list those out there. That will help also to ensure that you are meeting the clock hour, the Carnegie unit for the institution. And then expectations for out of class work, that might be another section you include in your syllabus. You might say, although we meet in person less frequently than a regular course, this requires the same amount of work. Taking a hybrid course demands a lot of discipline, self-direction, and time management skills. You may be expected to do work outside of class that may otherwise have been previously conducted in class. So students need to understand that this is not a way to get through a class easier. You know, I don't meet as often, so it's not going to be as hard, which really it's going to be probably tougher for them in terms of working on their own, working independently, setting aside time to get into the learning management system and complete work there, and to collaborate with students and interact with you and students within the LMS. Another section you might consider is technical requirements and support. And just letting students know you will need regular access to a computer with reliable internet connection to complete things. And then if there are specific skills, this is just a sampling of things that you might consider, like, are they able to use word processing software? Can they send and receive emails? I don't think many of our students would have trouble with a lot of these things. So this may be too specific. You might be more general of just, you need to have a reliable internet connection and access to a computer outside of class, which I think a majority of our students probably do. And then other questions to consider for your syllabus. What kinds of activities will students have to complete in order to be ready for in-class meetings? Are they, so think about the LMS, and will you have before class activities, in-class activities, and after class activities? And then the same for the following week. How will students know what they're to do when? How are students expected to participate online? For example, are they required to post every discussion forum? Are they to reply? How many students should they reply to? What should those replies look like? So that's really the blending of the online modality of discussions and collaboration and interaction. How many hours should students be expected to engage in work outside of the course? So we can easily say that with a course that meets, if it's 3 times a week for 15 weeks, students can easily calculate the number of hours they might be spending. Typically, it's for every hour you're in class, you're doing 2 hours of work outside of class. But if that hour in class is reduced, how does that change the outside of class? What does that formula look like for your class? And then what is the attendance policy for assigned online activities? So if there's a week that you're not meeting face-to-face, is there an expectation, or what is that expectation that students show that they're present and engaged in the class that particular week? For attendance, is there attendance daily? Is there attendance once a week? You need to think about your attendance policy. And then also let students know where they can find additional information. And a lot of times that's in your syllabus or inside the LMS, in our case, Canvas. So we also need to think about some administrative best practices as well. And we currently don't have specific hybrid policies in place per se. So what I'm going to give you here are recommendations made by other institutions to guide their faculty. So take these as guidance for consideration, but our internal process necessarily. This may offer some good advice of things to consider in the institutional process as a move is made to offering more hybrid courses. But each institution should consider for themselves what their internal processes need to be. So some things to consider. Will approval be required by your academic unit before you offer or decide to move to a hybrid format for a course? And the recommendation is that you decide that at least 2 terms in advance because of this course redesign process and some of the internal things that need to happen, such as offering hybrid as a schedule type for the course. So when students go in to register for courses, they would see the modality as online or on campus or hybrid, and that they are able to then select based on their preference. And then ask when you offer your course, you'll need to make sure the registrar knows that your section is considered a hybrid section. So again, I'm not saying this is what our institution does. I'm just saying these are some things to think about. The institution will need to consider as more hybrid courses are being offered. And don't panic, right? We want to use the KISS method, keep it simple, silly, and ask for help. So this may feel like a large undertaking after listening to all this today, all of these considerations administratively and with your syllabus and with your course design. And I really feel like today we just revealed the tip of the proverbial iceberg, and we could spend a lot of time discussing, brainstorming, and thinking through what hybrid could and should look like at our institution. This topic could easily become a series, so I would need to hear from you if more guidance is desired in this particular topic. We could talk more about course mapping, building the design in Canvas and what that might look like, pedagogy considerations, teaching methods, teaching style, student experience, student interaction, assessment plans, interactions in and out of the class, and so much more, really. So don't hesitate to reach out to me about this topic or others. And as you know, we are available in the Center for Learning and Innovation to help walk you through these considerations and the planning process, the redesign process, and we could even just serve as a sounding board. If there's a group of faculty who are interested in this, we can just serve as a sounding board as you talk through considerations, maybe moving forward with a pilot of a hybrid course. And we can offer some insights and best practices for your course and your students and your learning outcomes specifically. We can also, of course, provide assistance with the Canvas technology and even other teaching and learning technologies you may want to consider. So we do have a web page where you can sign up for what we call a consultation. And if you take your phone and open the camera app, you can scan that QR code and it will take you directly to that page. You can also go to snufacultysupport.com and click on the first tab at the top, which is CLI services. And we're happy to help you to schedule a meeting with us. There's a link there to click to schedule. And I look forward to talking with you guys. I love to hear from you. I love it when faculty reach out via email to let me know what they found interesting or helpful, or even if there was something confusing that I presented and you're wanting more guidance or information, I'm happy to do that. So thank you so much for spending some of your day with me today, and I will see you next time.
As always, if you need assistance with teaching tasks or anything else, visit our website,